Hello, everybody. I want to talk about Doug the Thug this week, episode, whatever you want to call this. And keep in mind, I don't do any edits. This is shot like live TV. So what you see is what you get. No net to fall into. So, everybody knows that Sonny Barger was the voice and the face of the Hells Angels, especially in the 60s. He went to prison in the early 70s, but prior to that, his face was everywhere, his voice was everywhere, and he did represent the club. But what you have to keep in mind, one man doesn't build a reputation of an organization. There was a lot of people involved in creating the rep of the Hells Angels, and Doug the Thug certainly played a part in that. He was a true living legend. I personally never saw him get angry, never saw him get violent with anyone, but I was told that his level of violence was bar none. They had not seen anything that could match it. The story starts out with Doug. It's a kind of a club myth. He was in a psychiatric ward, and he was getting court order shock treatments. And on the horizon, they were talking about a possible lobotomy. Now, if you don't know what a lobotomy is, it was something that they did back in the 60s. I'm not quite sure when they banned it. I knew a doctor that I became friends with in Dallas, Texas, that would give state ordered lobotomies. And he had a real heavy heart about him. He drank a lot. But if you want to get some inside information, get Ken Kesey's book, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And that whole story leads up to someone getting a lobotomy. And I think it'll enlighten you. But, Doug was scheduled for shock treatments. There was talk of a lobotomy. The rumor is, this is what Sonny Barger told me personally, the crew of guys went there from the club to whatever hospital he was in or what facility it was. They broke him out, and that's kind of how his legend began. Ultimately, he wound up in prison, and in prison, along with other Hells Angels, Doug made a fierce reputation for the club. And, we became friends with other prison gangs. Although the Hells Angels was not a prison gang, they were watched by the prison authorities. They became friends with the AB, the Mexican Mafia, and pretty much had sway on the yard because of guys like Doug. Slave Louis contributed to that whole, you know, myth of don't fuck with the Hells Angels. But Doug would come home from time to time and go back. And I'm going to focus on the last time he came home. He had been locked up for a while. I really didn't know him, run into him a couple times over the years, but he had come back and he was on his way to Ventura. And we had a responsibility in the club to try to keep these guys in and out of prison. They were like in a circular door, some of these guys. And, our job was to keep them out of prison. And we would actually talk about it in the officers' meetings. What can we do to keep this particular member from getting violated going back? And what you have to understand, it was a battle with the parole department and the cops because that was their intent, was to get these guys. They deemed these guys very dangerous, and they wanted them off the streets. And that's what they would do. They'd work at putting them back in there. Doug made his way to Ventura, and I knew he was coming. I got together everybody down at the clubhouse. I said, everybody down there mandatory. And, we had a dinner down there for him. And the idea was, maybe a little selfish of me as a leader, I was trying to keep Doug out of going uptown. There was street gangs running in and out of town, and I just didn't want to see Doug get in trouble in Ventura and go back. So we tried to create as much of a party atmosphere at the clubhouse, and we were doing pretty good. We had a lot of our members down there, a lot of guests. We invited. Nobody from the Valley was there because that was going to be Doug's next stop. But in the meantime, I kind of decided I would stay there all night. A lot of times at these parties, I'd sneak out late night and go home. But since Doug was there and I knew his reputation, I wanted to stay until he left. And I was in the front room just kind of relaxing, and my security officer came in and he told me, he goes, "Hey, Cave Dave and Doug are in the back room, and they're wiping down a gun and bullets, and they're putting them in this magazine, and I thought you ought to know." So, I kind of contemplated on what was going on for a couple minutes, and I decided I would go back and confront Dave and Doug, but I would be very diplomatic about it. And I went in the back and I reminded them that there was a club rule. You never brought out a party and a gun. And I said, why don't you guys explain what the heck's going on? We got members concerned about it. And, they were very cordial back. There was no bad energy or raised voices. We cut it up back and forth. And basically what Doug told me was, "Hey, I'm heading down to San Fernando Valley. I want to go see the brothers in SFV." He hadn't been out since San Fernando Valley had become a charter. I believe that was what he told me. And he said, "I'm going to make my way down there." Well, let me tell you, he was rolling in a lowered Cadillac. And anybody that's seen pictures of Doug, he was an ominous figure. And, I said, "Hey, Doug, man, you can't roll down to the valley like that. You're going to get pulled over." And, of course, he argued with me and said, "Nah, man, you worry too much, George." And he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "We got this problem with the Mongols." And he goes, "I'm not going to the valley and get caught short." And nothing I could say would change his mind or seem to even get him to contemplate it. So Doug rolled out the front of the clubhouse against my advice. I asked him, "Please leave the gun with me," and I'd return it to him on his way home. And he said, "No, I'm going to take it with me." And of course, he went to the valley, got stopped in San Fernando Valley. Perhaps he even got followed out of Ventura. That was a common practice. The gang squad would watch the clubhouse from up on the cross and then follow people out of town and get a black and white unit to pull them over. I don't know what happened. I didn't read the discovery on it. All I know is he got arrested for felon in possession of a firearm. He went back into the federal system, and that night was the last time I saw Doug alive. And, what happened after that created a big club controversy. Doug, I guess I'll describe it, Doug had a habit, if you will. And some of the guys did. They weren't supposed to. They weren't supposed to use heroin or needles. But, guys in prison were doing pretty much what they wanted. And especially a guy like Doug, how are you going to tell Doug what to do? He's going to do what he wanted. And, that's how these guys passed their time in prison. I knew a lot of guys in prison that I was good friends with. And, they used heroin. And that's how they passed their time. And they didn't care what rule was in place. They were going to do what they wanted. But Doug OD'd in his prison cell by himself. There was nothing shady about it. We never felt that it was a setup or a hot shot or anything like that. So this opened the door to a really huge controversy. There was a faction in the club that were strict, by the book guys, and they didn't want Doug to have that Hell's Angel funeral. And there was a big contingency that, wanted Doug to have it and didn't care, what happened or how he died. And ultimately, in the end, Doug got his funeral, perhaps because if Doug really wasn't dead, maybe there were people that were scared to go against him. I don't know. It was kind of a joke around the club. But I'm glad Doug got his funeral. He deserved it. The funeral was huge. I went up there, paid my respects along with, the whole southern contingency of Hell's Angels, and made my way back. wasn't long after that, I was arrested myself by the FBI, and I wound up in Terminal Island. And it was in Terminal Island when I found out, first time I'd been arrested and been down it, that's when I found out what type of weight a guy like Doug the Thug carried, or Slave Louie, or whatnot. But Doug the Thug uh, still had rumors running around. And one of the big rumors was that he really wasn't dead, that the feds had locked him in a cell in Colorado and then welded it shut so the prison staff would be safe. And, I didn't want to get involved in anybody's dream or, you know, if that's how they saw Doug, that's the way I wanted to continue them to see Doug. So Doug was a dream to many, and I'm also sure he was a nightmare to a lot of other people. But, one of the things, I'll tell you a couple of incidents I know of. I know that we had a run called the Muster to Custer, and there was a rumor the outlaws, said, "Hey, we've had it with you guys." This was in the early '80s. We've had it with you guys, and we are going to roll into Sturgis. Sturgis was kind of a Bandito Hell's Angel run. It was really a national run for the Banditos, but we were kind of going in there and making our presence known. And the Banditos were willing to, be gracious about it. But the Outlaws were supposed to stay in Florida. Daytona was their run, but rumor on the street was the Outlaws were coming, and they didn't care what the Hell's Angels said or how many of us showed up. And so it was a place where we were going to fight it out, and then of course the winner would walk away with the heavyweight championship title. But anyways, Doug showed up there, and he had just returned from prison. It was early '80s, and Doug walked down the middle of the street in Sturgis, looking for outlaws. The street parted like the Red Sea, if you will, but he had that prison swagger that he carried right up Main Street with him, and he had a big crowd of people around him. Everybody was watching. Everybody was excited. Nothing happened. I'm glad. Another story is he was on his way to a USA run, and he stopped off somewhere on the way, had motor problems, and had his motor rebuilt, and immediately it went out again, and rumor has it he took this mechanic out to the desert, and I don't know how far out he was or which direction they were in, but he took these boots away from this guy and told him, you take my form of transportation, I'm taking your form. He took his boots and told him to walk back to town. And of course, I didn't see it. I don't know. But that was one of the many rumors, all kinds of rumors running around about Doug. But, Doug was a stand-up guy. Like I said, I never saw him get violent. He never disrespected me or anybody I was ever around. But I was told by Sonny personally that he went to this mental place where they were going to do the shock treatments. Then he ultimately, he didn't complete the court-ordered, I don't know if I would call it medical process or what. It sounds to me more like torture, But they sent him to prison after that, and Sonny said he came back a completely different guy, that he just couldn't believe the change in him, and he was amazed at how violent he had become. I didn't say it. Like I said, this is a little story about Doug. The last time I saw him, I hope you enjoyed it. I want you to look for, I'm going to do a little tribute to Big Vinny. And in that tribute, I'm going to talk about my personal experience with Vinny, the fight between Irish and Vinny, and then what transpired afterwards. You had myself, Irish, and keep in mind, Irish and I were both Los Angeles Hell's Angels before we went to Oakland, so I had a personal relationship with him. and Sandy Alexander. So it was quite a mess, the fight between Irish and Vinny, but I'm going to talk about that. People have been writing me. If you want to know about somebody specifically, you can write to me on my Gmail. Go to my website, georgechristie.com, and you can write me personally. I don't answer a lot of mail, on posts because it's too difficult. But I give just little 1 word, 2 word remarks. But if you want to hear about somebody or have somebody specifically in mind, write me on my Gmail. Okay, I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.